Thanks for hanging around. Thought you might do for this one that's coming up. Fino and Kolento. It's the top of the table clash. And I think Bunny Hopper will be taking a big interest in this one. We're down to 4 players, realistically, who are going to get those 3 playoff spots. And I think Bunny Hopper would like Fino to take this one down, take Kolento out of it. Kolento will have something to say about that. If he wins, he almost books his spot into the playoffs. And Gallon is going to tell us who is going to win it. Gallon, who's going to win it?
I think the better player will.
Which one is the better player? Now you've really dug yourself a hole because you've got to say live on air who the better player is.
Well, I think that it's looking like Fino has just been absolutely killing it. So if I had to put an edge, I'm not going to say he's going to, but if I had to put an edge, I'd give it to Fino.
So what you're saying is that a sample size of one Hearthstone match, sometimes weird things happen. Let's have a look at what Fino is going with in this event. So he's going with his traditional rogue with Sea Giants, Water Rogue. As I
traditional for Fino, I wouldn't call it a traditional. Yes, I wouldn't call it a traditional deck list anyways. There's Sea Giants in an aggro deck.
Yeah, I mean...
that doesn't really play for board.
That's weird. You think you play like Hunters or something.
It's just a 5-mana 8/8. You know how people used to play a Fell Reaver in aggro decks?
Yeah.
That's kind of what Fino is doing here, where, you know, he'll play a couple lackeys, his opponent will play a couple other stuff. You just play a 5-mana 8/8. That's a good card.
But it's also an 8/8 that's going to make Kolento's work interesting.
Speaking of 5-mana 8/8s, 3-mana 12/12s in both players' decks.
3-mana 12/12s, indeed, Edwin Van Cleef. Sometimes a 3-mana 12/12 and beyond. Kolento playing the same deck, however, he doesn't have the 5-mana 8/8s. He has a Sap and a Ziliax. The Sap's a big deal.
The Sap actually is going to be pretty relevant when we're talking about Edwin Van Cleef specifically. Fino does not have a Sap in his deck list. He cannot answer Kolento's Edwin if it comes down. However, Kolento does have the one-of Sap to answer Fino's.
And one-ofs are interesting in this sort of format to me.
Yep.
Because generally, if you're playing a one-of something, it looks a little bit, why your deck's inconsistent. But when your opponent knows your list and you've got to play around a one-off Sap, it can really mess with your mind.
A lot of times you just say it isn't there.
Right, and then sometimes it is.
And then sometimes it is, and then that punishes you. I think that's
probably
actually,
play around it too often.
I think that's actually something that's really interesting, is that when you run a 2-of a card, like, say for example, Big Game Hunter in Warrior versus Mage.
Yeah.
You could run 1 instead of 2, because against a good player...
and have the same effect.
Against a good player, well, no, it won't have the same effect. Because a lot of times if you run 2 Big Game Hunters, your opponent will say, oh, I just need to divert from this Mountain Giant game plan, and suddenly your Big Game Hunter...
Yeah. So just looking at Fino's hand.
Oh.
Sorry to cut you off with...
No. This is way better. This is way better. What I was just trying to say was, when people don't play around one-ofs, they're a lot more impactful.
Yes.
That's all. However, then it's less consistent, so yada,
But they have the other choice. They might
There
not
it
play
is.
around it, in which case you've saved yourself playing 2 of them.
Yeah.
So either way, they're in trouble.
Sure.
I think George C. was one of the first players to do that with Leroy Jenkins. I know you can only play one, but you play one. Just force people to play around it.
Yeah, people don't really play 2 Leroy Jenkins.
Yeah. But
That's
people
pretty uncommon.
Yeah.
I don't think I've really ever seen it, actually. I wonder why that is.
I don't know, you're not getting your creative buys active enough, obviously. Well, Fino's hand didn't get any worse. So how much of this turn is thinking, how much of it is keeping a straight face?
It's actually a pretty difficult turn from Fino.
Right.
It's really hard, I would say.
So why is it so complicated? Is it because you want to make sure that the Edwin is maximized without being overdone?
If you play a 6/6 here, you have no way to activate your Evil Miscreant, and if the Edwin gets answered from a Sap, for example, you can be super far behind at that point. Fino says, there's only 1 Sap in Kolento's deck list. Here's a 6/6, deal with it.
Exactly what we were talking about. And Kolento says, I haven't got a Sap, and my Edwin is just a singular 2/2 for 3 mana.
Kolento with a pretty hard decision here. I mean, Edwin is just a 2/2.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad, right? 3-mana 2/2.
I wonder.
Yes, awful card.
Yep.
Definitely shouldn't play it. So he does have to go with the Cable Rat to set up all of his combo effects for next turn.
Face is actually pretty interesting. Maybe you just play it now.
That seems okay.
Minor positioning error. You should play your Faceless Lackey on the far left, so in case you get Direwolf Alpha. But it really won't matter. It's not a big deal.
No, but it's interesting when people do that. It's very revealing sometimes about how much they played a deck. I mean, Kolento does play a lot of
I'm sure he's played a lot.
But it is revealing sometimes, because if you think of it once, you start defaulting to the same thing over and over again without thinking about it again.
Yes.
And it's obviously something that's just never really crossed my mind.
Once it happens to you once, and you're like, oh, I should probably start doing this. Yeah.
Exactly. And Kolento is kind of an isolated soul in some ways. He won't have discussions about trivial things like that.
Also, I'm sure if you ask Kolento about it, he'll say,
he'll say
it didn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to ask Kolento about that. I don't want to lecture.
Yes, yes.
From one of the best players
that sounds
of all
like
time.
yeah.
That would go wrongly.
This is actually an interesting decision point, whether you trade with the 2-3 or the 2-1-1s.
Yeah, especially when your opponent has Sea Giants, right?
Are you saying that you want to trade with the 2-1-1s?
I'm saying it's a thing you've got to consider.
Sure, sure.
And Phantom Knives.
Well, that's not something you really consider, right? That was a...
Of course, yeah. Well, do you have time to set up a shark, and do you have a reason to set up a shark? I think you do with Cable Rat into Miscreant.
Shark here seems quite good, yeah.
You're not taking a huge smack on the backswing, and you're setting up a fantastic turn. So.
That's one thing about the mirror, is that you can't really answer your opponent's shark. So they just kind of get a free turn of the effect.
I mean, most decks can't. Really.
Yeah.
Some can, but in general...
People aren't really running Hellfire or Stampeding Kodo.
Yeah, I saw people for a while consider putting Kodos in, because when Shark was like the absolute dominant.
Can I ask you a quick question about something?
You just did?
Well, can I ask you another quick question?
Sure, let's go for it.
Do you think that the Loas, I believe that's what they're called,
yeah.
Are played a lot more now because something like Void Ripper isn't in the metagame anymore?
I think they just played more now because the power level has gone down a little bit.
But do you think that any of it could be attributed to Void Ripper being rotated out? Because that card was seeing play in Odd Paladin, Odd Rogue.
Interesting, because it has a knock-on effect. It's possible, definitely possible. Probably a combination of all the factors.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have Evil Miscreant at that point, so, you know, Spirit of the Shark didn't really have anything that was, like, very powerful to use alongside of it.
And also there were just better cards you could do on form, I would imagine. There always is. But it is always interesting, because we're seeing a few of these played now, even in some of the lower tier decks, they're sneaking into Shaman.
Yeah, Spirit of the Frog,
for instance.
I think that's the only other one that's really being played right now. I could be wrong. The Warrior one, the Druid one, definitely do not see play. Paladin is a little bit too slow. It's not playing even Paladin for a little bit.
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah, it was an even Paladin for a bit as a 1-of sometimes.
So many options.
Good voice line, that one, because there really are so many options right now. This mirror is a hard one when it's close. Like, sometimes someone just Edwins you, sometimes you just get all your Miscreants, the opponent doesn't. But when you both get your crux of your deck,
so many
it becomes
options.
incredibly difficult.
I don't really think the mirror is an aggressive matchup. I think it's actually kind of similar to the Mid-Range Hunter. The more I watch this than Mid-Range Hunter, or Beast Hunter, I apologize, the more similarities I seem to notice. You kind of just have the tools to remove what your opponent is doing the entire time. But if you get to that point where you run out of resources, then you just very quickly die.
Yeah, and the only reason it's maybe a little bit quicker than the Beast Hunter mirror is because you don't have to go out Unleash the Hounds.
Also, I think that
if you do get a turn where you can have the advantage, you can just overwhelm them. But that takes ages to get to.
I think it's also a little bit quicker because the way you have of like healing and staving off damage is Life Drinker instead of Scale High Dire Frenzy. And Scale High Dire Frenzy is way more powerful than Life Drinker at protecting yourself.
Okay, yeah.
But I do agree with you. Unleash the Hounds not being in the deck matters quite a bit. However, sometimes it is in the deck because of Henchman Burglar.
Everything's in the deck.
Yes.
And why didn't Fino play around more arm?
Well, that one he actually knew about.
The first one.
Yeah.
Give me some sort of break sometime. Oh, you did earlier. That's it. That's the one for the day. And Kolento's going to eventually get value out of the Edwin as well.
Yeah. I mean, probably next turn. What's really funny is that the best answer to Spirit of the Shark sometimes is just playing your own Spirit of the Shark.
Yeah, I've seen I've analysed some situations with this. Obviously, you want to play the second shark rather than the first one, but you can't afford not to play yours first in case they haven't even got one in their hand. I think that came up in a recent tournament, people having a massive fight over some plays, and the whole point ends up being that you don't know what's in their hand, so you have to play your shark and get on with your life. But if you know they've got a shark as well, if you know you've both got a shark somehow, then it becomes weird because you want to respond to their shark with yours.
Options.
And just wipe out their board with your lackeys.
These aren't really the lackeys that Kolento wanted to use with Spirit of the Shark. Togwaggle off the top also could divert his game plan quite a bit. He might move away from Edwin and just go into double treasure here. I wouldn't mind seeing that. Lightwell is actually quite good in these kinds of spots.
Yes.
Because you want to use your treasures. And it also protects you and gives you enough time to actually, you know...
It's really irritating to play. It does heal you for 5, plus the 3. You have to kill it.
Sea Giant off the top.
Oof.
Is that... I didn't do the math on it.
It's good, is the math.
I agree.
This is one of those turns that...
It's tough, man.
And look at next turn for Kolento, though, with the double wand. Whatever Fino does here could just be completely undone with 0 mana cards, oddly enough.
Wondrous Wand is quite powerful.
It's ridiculous. If you want a lesson in tempo, just always take Wondrous Wand and see how much you win. No matter what your instincts as a newer player may be to take legendaries and things, just take Wand every time until you realise how good 0 mana cards are.
I think what happened is people, you know, started with legendaries being the best pick or believing that legendaries were the best pick, and we kind of diverted from that into Wand is now usually the correct one.
And I think the trap is to think, oh no, I got a 0 mana backstab. Yeah, but you've got 3 cards.
Yeah.
Turns out, as long as you get something with it, a 0 mana backstab is not a disaster. It's fine.
I mean, Wondrous Wand for a Leroy, for example, or even a Waggle pick is just so powerful.
There's a Waggle pick.
There's a Leroy.
Why wasn't the other card a backstab? They would have
Yeah.
got the set. But yeah, you can just see already how ridiculous this is. That's the closest Kolento's ever got to saying the same that you just did. Like, he actually moved forward in his seat
Yes,
and
yeah.
looked a bit harder at the situation.
All right, he's going to play his cards so they're in play. Excellent. I imagine the follow-up is the second Wondrous Wand.
I'm just scanning the board to see if there's a lethal here.
Does Wondrous Wand ever get there with... Shadow Step doesn't give you enough mana to play another Leroy.
Choose soon.
So that there shouldn't be a lethal hiding here somewhere.
Maybe he's just going for a big Edwin.
Corporal Elite into Edwin.
Oh! That's you actually playing Hearthstone.
Wow.
Yep.
Thanks.
Ancient Mage.
I know what you mean. You've got to explain it to those people out there who realise.
Well, sometimes you forget things, Lorinda.
Sometimes I forget things. Whatever makes you happy.
I am doing great.
We've got another day of this, Galen. You can't unload everything today, otherwise I won't talk to you again. Talking of unloading everything, Kolento's unloaded a lot of stuff there, giving Fino some issues.
So, one thing I want to say is, if you Fan of Knives here, the Lightwell gets a lot worse. You could go Fan of Knives and Waggle pick face. You know, then you're looking at a 1 in 3 for the Lightwell to heal Kolento, and it sets up a potential lethal with a Waggle pick face. You really can't get away with killing this Edwin ever, so you're probably just going to ignore it for the rest of the time.
Yeah, the scary thing, though, is that you know that next turn Kolento's going to have another 3 0-cost cards.
Yes, but, okay, what Fino's doing here, I really like.
He's just trying to win the game next turn.
Yes, he's trying to give himself an out to win this game. Killing the light well does not do that.
And he's dead.
Oh.
Is he dead? 14, 18.
He is dead if it picks up the Life Drinker or the SI7 agent.
Not worth the risk, so he does have to wand.
Wonders one for an Eviscerate kills.
Shark should be lethal as well.
Shark is absolutely lethal. Because we were looking at just picking up a Life Drinker anyways.
And there we go, point made about, it's not a particularly thrilling point, but yeah, 0 mana cards.
Good.
Very good, because they allow you to spend 16 mana in a turn.
Yep. Kolento goes up to 1-0 in the series.
Chance of beating Fino, but we've seen that Fino is a resilient soul in this tournament. We thought he'd lost yesterday, but he found a way to get wins.
Even at 0-1, I think Fino is still feeling pretty comfortable. He's not someone that goes down in a series and says, oh man, I have no chance of winning this.
I think that's one of the advantages, or one of the benefits last year's tour stop system for Fino. He played in nearly every tour stop. You play a lot of Hearthstone in those situations, and last season there were some best of fives as well. So sometimes he'd be 2-0 down and have to learn not to panic. Sometimes he'd be 2-0 up and lose the finals.
Sometimes
just saying.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a good player, you've lost a lot of games of Hearthstone before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But somebody like Kolento, for instance, doesn't. I mean, Kolento's a weird one to talk about because he plays a lot on stream and doesn't enter many tournaments. But somebody like Fino. And a lot of
his entire career
play
last year,
so many matches. They just play Hearthstone and they don't worry about game score. They just play games as they come. Especially after he grabbed the win in Orange County, I want to say.
We got word that both players are staying on their primary deck list. 1 sap in Kolento, no sap in Fino. 28 of the 30 cards are the exact same.
Yeah, that's pretty straightforward stuff, I think. You don't tend to tech for mirrors unless you're really expecting a lot of them. Warriors do a little bit, I guess.
The Rogue Mirror got a lot more interesting because Bloodsail Corsair was a card that you would tech in your list to beat Wagglepick, but then Raiding Party got nerfed, so it kind of exited the metagame, which means that Bloodsail Corsair and stuff like Acidic Swamp Ooze are actually less consistent. Also, when you're playing against a person that knows you have that weapon destruction, their game plan will often deviate from the weapon. And with the removal of Raiding Party from the deck, it makes it even more likely that they deviate.
What do you make of people who say then, in relation to what you just said, that open deck lists are less skillful?
I think open deck lists are incredibly skillful. They might be slightly a bit more boring because you might see someone just not play around a Deathwing, for example. But I think at the highest level, it leads to less misplays. And I like games where people are playing as well as possible.
Yeah, less accidental misplays, to be clear, because you can't play around the whole of Hearthstone. Which is an accidental misplay.
Exactly.
If your opponent just puts
it's more about,
understanding at a pure level. It's
not perfect information because obviously you can't see what your opponent's hand is, but it's closer to it.
And it's hard enough already playing around.
Yes.
I always get frustrated with the argument. I mean, in chess, you have complete information, and it's still difficult.
You were actually telling me that chess still has a random element to it where people will, study for thousands of hours, but if you go against someone that's just studied a different line than you have...
Yeah, at least an element of sort of rock, paper, scissors to some extent. They know what you're going to study, they know what you normally play. Same goes the other way. So, and there's still the element of, if you study the wrong thing, there's a good chance you're going to be on the back foot in the game.
It kind of applies to Hearthstone too, because there's only so much preparation you can do. If your opponent brings something that you don't expect, or you just submit a lineup that doesn't really answer what your opponent is doing, you can often get burned.
And Fino and Kolento haven't got any preparation at all. Just backstabs and shadow steps. You'll get used to it eventually.
Where's the Illidan Storm Rage? His voice line is, "You were not prepared."
There you go. I was not prepared for that voice line. It just whooshed straight over.
This guy's toast.
So Kolento with the apparently better hand, even though Fino's is reasonable enough. Oh, I've now changed my mind. Kolento with a much better hand.
Sounds quite good. Backstab Miscreant seems like the play here for Kolento. You're not really committing that much. You kill a 3/3. You still set up for an amazing Edwin next turn. Or not even next turn, but possibly with like Spirit of the Shark into Edwin. Fino does not have a sap, remember that. So if Kolento goes Spirit of the Shark under little pressure and then follows up with like 2 lackeys into an Edwin, easy way for Kolento to win the game. Fino would have to get an answer off of something like Hench Clan Burglar, for example, to deal with that.
Yeah, and he hasn't got any of those things that you just mentioned
Yes.
available to him. And the Sea Giant isn't proving to be as big a plus as it looked like so far. This one time he got it down, he was already in so much trouble because of the wide board that almost by definition,
yes,
it wasn't any use.
That's one of the problems with Sea Giant is that, yes, it can be very good if your opponent has a lot of minions, but it's also bad because your opponent has a lot of minions.
Yeah, because it's like the Savannah High Main problem. If you play that onto a board that's wide, they just ignore it and hit you in the face.
Yeah. Or they sap it and hit you in the face. That happened a lot.
That's even worse, yeah.
That's a feels bad, man.
Another of Hearthstone's
So
long-standing
many options.
semi-truths. Like, if High Main is sapped, you lose.
Yep.
Now, half of Hearthstone's semi-truths revolve around High Main. Now I think about it.
I think it's just like a very defining card of how to play Hearthstone, you know?
Because the first time you ever play Hearthstone and you run into a High Main, you're like, this isn't a fair card. What do I do? And then more
And then you
more
understand about how it works and where it's strong and where it's very weak.
and then you realize it's not a fair card.
It's still not a fair card, but,
But you know how to play around it.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That's a good way of putting it. Kolento has a couple decisions here.
A couple of decisions.
Well,
He
there's
can play literally any combination
sure,
of cards in his hand.
sure.
That's
But
a lot
this
of
is what I was going to say. There's two mainly, is whether you go Spirit of the Shark or Hench Clan Burglar Vendetta. I think at a certain point, when you play Rogue, you get to a point where you kind of filter out everything that is like obviously wrong.
Yeah.
And from Kolento's perspective, I think that going like Lackey Edwin would be obviously wrong. It's something that where you could set it up with a Spirit of Shark and just completely blow Fino out of the water.
All three of these cards
Fino,
have merit.
well, you could blow Fino out of the water.
Oh, sorry, I was just letting that like simmer for people to take. You don't have to highlight them all. I was just looking at these three cards. All three of these, depending on how you think the game's going to unfold, are very playable.
You were pointing out the Witch's Brew on our side.
Yeah, that's what I liked. And I looked at the other cards, and they both have
Everything
merit
was good, yeah.
in different situations. Blew him out of the water. Huh.
Thank you.
He wasn't going to move on to the cast, so I did that. Got it over with.
Fino isn't moving on in this game. His hand does nothing.
Yeah, and even worse, he's going to be forced to, if he gets the chance to stick damage face, and the Witch's Brew is just going to answer that.
The Vendetta draw here is just adding to Fino's misery. Look at his hand. Leroy, Sea Giant, Heist Baron, Togwaggle. Edwin. Edwin is legitimately a 3-mana 2/2 in this kind of hand.
Yeah. It's just... Well...
Fino will need something absolutely incredible to win this game. I'm thinking Spirit of the Shark off the top into an Evil Miscreant. He plays Edwin into Evil Miscreant.
So
Gets an
many
Ethereal Lackey.
options.
Shadow Steps the Ethereal Lackey.
I like this script.
Plays it again. Gets 2 Shadow Steps. Plays a Shadow Step on the Edwin. Makes it 22-22.
And then dies.
Yeah.
I hope you like my
It was going so well.
Choose suicide.
Oh, this is
I like the storytelling mode. That was good storytelling voice.
It's actually really interesting. I think that this
Even Kaboom Bot's pretty handy here. So now he can't get a shark stuck to the board.
yeah, that's actually quite true.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were going to say quite relevant, and then you looked at the board and realised that nothing's relevant right now. Looks like Fino is on the edge of taking his first loss in the tournament.
This could be not these cards.
However, just take a moment while we're wondering why Fino is going to lose to look at the amazing golden rocket boots guy. He's so happy.
He's also got just a jetpack on him. It's like rocket boots and a rocket jetpack. Honestly, it looks from the screen that the jetpack is doing more of the work.
Yeah, I would say so. But the boots, they don't look stable. That looks like you're going to sort of spin upside down very, very rapidly if you actually hit the thrust on that.
I don't think it's meant to be stable.
Yeah, not much of the things that are related to Dr. Boom are stable in any way.
I'm pretty sure when you give rocket boots to a minion, you're not actually making the minion attack. You're just attaching a rocket to it and just blowing up another minion here.
What, like this?
Yes. That wasn't because the minions attacked each other. It was just a big explosion.
And Kolento doing what he likes here.
Whatever he wants. Eviscerate. More damage.
Myra's win the game later.
What if Eviscerate was like Witch's Brew where it had Echo? Or I guess...
it would be really good.
It's technically... Yeah, that's a good analysis of it.
Let's sound the bells. Didn't work out too well for King's Landing, but, you know, try.
From nothing. Power.
I kind of wanted him to shadow step the Edwin there.
Yeah, I'm looking at this and I was going to say I've entirely lost interest, but the choices Kolento had to make are impossible because they didn't matter. He's got to find the fringe corner case in the whole of Hearthstone, the one that you just described for 27 minutes, which I thought was a recap of the Silvername game. And Kolento is the first person to beat Fino in the European Grandmasters. Didn't quite get to double figures, but the bigger news for that isn't the Fino loss. The Kolento win puts him nice and safe in second place and almost guaranteed into the playoffs.
I mean, Kolento is just also killing it in that region. Obviously not as well as Fino, but also getting a win over Fino, I think, is actually a pretty big deal. You know, you kind of establish yourself as someone that can be the first place, even if it's not necessarily how the bracket is working out right now.
Yeah, also, if you're in an 8-player group and everybody else loses to Fino,
Yes.
you've got a big head start there.
Yeah. I think in that matchup, Kolento had powerful hands, but I also thought he played it very well. I think not Blinkfox, Henchclan Burglar into Vendetta instead of Spirit of the Shark was quite a nice deviation from how his hand was originally panning out. He took it a little bit slow in the mid game, and I think that's actually a really smart thing to do in the Rogue Mirror. Again, like Beast Hunter, where you don't need to just throw everything out there as early as possible. It's not always about getting as much tempo as early as possible. You know, he took a line where he said, okay, Fino's on the play. He doesn't have really any way of establishing a lot of tempo. I can take it pretty slow and just use my resources in a way to just deny him any chance of winning.
So let's see if he saw it the same way. We have got Kolento on the line for us. Kolento, congratulations once again, the first person this year to beat Fino. And I want to ask you about your play in general, because it always seems to me, having won a big tournament earlier in the year as well, that you relish and play better against the best players in the world. Do you feel that you do play better?
Hello guys, hasn't Fino lost a game yesterday? Oh, match.
So I mean match, yeah. He beat Silvername yesterday, 2-1.
Oh, he did? Really?
Yeah.
I just stopped watching when he
when he had lost. Yeah.
What was the question one more time?
Basically, do you feel that you play your best when you're playing against the other best players in the world? Do you think that helps you play better?
I can't say it's necessarily about that. It's just about feeling interest in a game. And it might, like, the fact I'm playing against a very good player, I don't know if that makes me that much more excited, but some other things can. Not quite sure what
I was going to say,
things.
I have a quick question for you. Ever since the rating party nerf, for me at least, it's felt like the rogue matchup has gotten a lot slower. Do you think that it's more about tempo or more about just like managing resources in the mid game in the rogue matchup? Like if you have the opportunity to go for a large Edwin or just like wait a while, what's the best approach?
Normally, I like to play Edwin whenever. Like if you can backstep, make a 4/4, it's good. If you know there's no sap and you can make it bigger, sure, go for it. Like in the match, I could make a really huge one Karif, but I didn't know what will happen next turn. Maybe he draws the shark and then discovers like random spells to answer it on Cliff, right? So I decided, yeah, just make it 10-10. I don't need the shark there. I could still go with the shark to fill my hand later.
Actually, talking about that sap, do you think that one sap is right for the deck in general, or is there just one in there because these are open deck lists, so that makes it more complicated for your opponent?
I don't know. Can it really be correct? Like, if you check percentage-wise, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you check percentage-wise, it's about same. Whatever card you put, like Sea Giant or Sap or whatever. Card in erase rates, that also seems kind of weird. Maybe having one is fine. It's more about not making mistakes, it feels like, and all those cards they can be replaced and you'll still be fine.
And I guess my final question for you is, like, in the mid game when you went Hench Clan Burglar Vendetta over Spirit of the Shark, how do you approach playing Spirit of the Shark in the matchup?
It's all about thinking ahead in one turn, right? Like how, say my hand, I didn't roll a damage lucky, so I couldn't even deal with 3/3 on board if I go Shark. So what would I do? I would go a 4/3 and Vendetta next turn and a lucky. It just feels weak for the Shark for the investment. I guess I could evolve the Shark and then make a 4/3 and get 2 cards from it. It might have been fine, but I just felt like just playing Vendetta there was fine. I could save the Shark for later because it only gets better with time, right?
Okay, well, thank you as always for your insight, Kolento. I know that people love to hear you speak about the game. We'll let you get off now. Well done this week, and good luck going forward in the tournament. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you, see you.
Yeah, Kolento there sharing. I always, with Kolento, I have to concentrate really hard on what he's saying, or I get lost because he's such a genius and the words come out in such a flow.
Really, you think so? I feel like Kolento actually does a very good job of explaining his
He
thought
does,
process.
but I have to pay attention, otherwise I lose the train.
Maybe not the macro part of it. You know, he kind of assumes that everyone else understands, okay, so this is how the matchup goes, but in this specific spot,
But that's my job
X,
and
Y,
your
and
job
Z.
too.
Sure. I feel like explaining the micro decisions, he does a very good job at that.
I agree. I love watching him be interviewed. And we are now going to go to another break. We've got Psycho and RDU. It's a similar situation in the other division where Psycho's running away with it. Can he finish off the job? We'll let you know in about 3 minutes.